Alrighty, fans, welcome to another edition of Sports Chat. Another week where Campbell County moves up in the polls. Tennessee didn't lose this week.
There's always that.
Actually, you had the big Tennessee announcement this week's the Bristol Bowl.
Yeah. If Tennessee's improved, I think they said it was going to hold 188,000 people. You're going to be half a mile from the field if you go and get on the top row. So they may fill it up just because of the spectacle of the event, but it's going to be a terrible way to watch a football game, in my opinion. I mean, I saw a graphic, and all of Neyland Stadium will fit in the infield at Bristol, basically. And you know how far you are if you've ever been on the top row at Neyland, you're pretty far from the field at that point. I mean, if you're going to go to Bristol, bring your binoculars. But that's in 2016, so who knows what will be happening by then.
And, that's a game that's been in the works. It's been talked about for
17 years they've been talking about this game. And Tennessee would never agree to it. They didn't want to give up a home game. And apparently, I guess Bruton Smith, the guy who owns Bristol Speedway, worked out the financial side of it to the satisfaction of both teams. So it's going to happen.
Now, I got to give him a lot of credit. That man is innovative. He likes to do stuff to get people into his facility.
Yeah, I mean,
he's a smart owner.
It'll be a big spectacle of the game. Hopefully, it'll help Tennessee to get some recruits. I mean, they picked up two pretty nice recruits this week. I believe their recruit plus may went back to number 1 in the country for now. With the ability to back count, probably going to sign 5 more, or get commitments to try to sign 5 more players. I think we have 26 right now. I think they're going to try for 31. Probably have 7 or 8 of those enroll at the midterm and back count those for this past year.
That midterm enrollment's big. It really helps to be able to be in team meetings with the strength and
You
conditioning.
get spring practice, and that's a difference right now. Our last several freshman quarterbacks were able to start. Came in at the midterm and were able to enroll early and go through spring practice. And that's why the current 2 freshman quarterbacks neither enrolled at midterm and just didn't have that practice time. It would have been very good. They pretty much have at least several junior college players I know will be able to enroll at midterm. That one of the commitments this week was maybe the 2nd or 3rd rated offensive line at all of junior college. Offensive lineman, he's 6'7", 320 pounds.
It's a big, beefy line.
Yeah, and he's a 4-star recruit. They got another 4-star recruit out of the Nashville area this week. He's one of the top players in the state at home defensive line. He may grow into a defensive tackle. Tennessee's been being a defensive tackle, it seems like, ever since Albert Hainsworth and
John Henderson
left. I mean, they've not really been that thin ever since then, but just those 2 were so dominating, it seems that
It does spoil you.
we've had several defensive tackles who are actually playing pretty well in the NFL right now since that time.
You can look at Denver's defense, and you got Malik Jackson and Robert Harris playing on that defense. They've done well with it.
And Tennessee's had some decent success getting some good players out of junior college. I mean, most recently, obviously, Cordell Patterson dominated last year, was the first round NFL draft pick. You have about a 50-60% success rate on those. It's a little bit more sure than college. You've got a few more years to look at them. Some of the offensive linemen they've taken out of the junior college ranks over the past few years have been solid but not spectacular. Hopefully this guy really is spectacular. We're going to have to replace the entire offensive line possibly this year because we only have basically Tiny Richardson, the junior, but he's projected to be
very
easy.
easy. The deal will be gone. Of course, in bigger news this week, once again, the Cougars pick up a win. I tell you, one of the quotes of the game, for the end of the game, before I interviewed Justin, I'm like, Coach, it was a win, but it's ugly. He looked at me and said, Pat, it's the prettiest win I've ever had.
It's a win. There's no ugly wins, really, when you look at it. And Gibbs came out. They had 2 weeks to prepare. They had the off week. And Gibbs, they scored some points against some people this year. They scored 28 against Oak Ridge.
They scored 35 against AC.
I think they scored 6 against AC. Actually, then I looked at it.
Okay, they scored 35 against somebody.
They scored the last 4 weeks though. They've been scoring. They scored around 30 on Powell. They scored around 30 on Oak Ridge. They scored 36 against Halls. Their offense has been doing pretty well the last few weeks, and their defense has played pretty well too. I mean, they don't have a lot of wins to show for it. They held AC to 35 points. That's their second lowest total of the year. Campbell County's the only one held AC to that low of a point total this year. I can't remember what the Powell final score was. Anyway, it's close. I mean, Gibbs is not a bad. There's a separation between Gibbs and Halls and Coleman.
Right.
And Gibbs is on that tier with Clinton. They're
Almost
similarly
there.
skilled. Yeah. Clinton beat Gibbs, but it was a very close game. It was like 41 to 38, something along those lines. It was a high scoring match. So Gibbs, that option is tough to stop. And you used to see it a little more in high school, but you don't really see it anymore.
None of the options kind of in disfavor right now for the most part.
The problem with it is it's hard to stop because you have a high turnover rate with the option. And Gibbs had 3 critical turnovers that led to 21 Campbell County points. And Campbell County couldn't stop them in the traditional sense of forcing them to punt, but they stopped them 3 times via the turnover. One of the plays, Nick Bailey just ripped it away from the guy and took off and ran for 25 yards for a touchdown.
You know, Nick is neck and neck trying to win that Prep Extra Defensive Player of the Week based on his performance.
He's also known for the WBR Player of the Week as well.
So, I mean, and Nick Bailey's he's a special kind of player. I mean, you don't get many players like him.
Here's the thing about high school football, and to some extent college as well, but for sure at high school. If you have one player that can make a difference on your team is going to be a lot better than it would be otherwise. One player can affect an outcome that much in high school.
And Nick Bailey, he's just looking at his numbers are.
He has 91 tackles
amazing
on the season now in 8 games. He has maybe 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns on the season. And
that critical interception against Central.
Touchdown. I mean, he's a game changer. You have to have game changers.
He is the kind of linebacker that coaches dream about having on their team.
But you ask any coach whether you would want to have 3 or 4 average players or one player that can be a game changer. They'll take the game changer every time.
Oh yeah.
And that's what he does. He changes the way the game goes.
And he's got some good support too.
Oh yeah. I mean, a part of his reason I always say for making those tackles is when you look at Campbell County, those down linemen for them. Even though Andrew Evans is technically a linebacker, he lines up as a down lineman a lot.
And
Christian Monday, they command so much offensive line presence, it allows Bailey to run free and make tackles.
You know, also Fresnell. He's quick off that line, and they have to block down on him and try to shut him down, and that opens another lane up.
The Cougars, in my article this week, I did some research last night, and I pointed out, you can look up all the 5A teams in the state and their standings. There are only, the Cougars are tied for the 3rd best record in the state in 5A right now. There are 3 teams 7-1. One team is 8-0. Everybody else has at least 2 losses in 5A in the state.
I want y'all to let that sink in for a second.
The Cougars' offense, they scored 299 points this year through 8 games. That's the 3rd leading offense in the state in 5A.
And that's another thing. I always talk about my senior year, what a low point total output we had. The Cougars may outscore my entire high school career this year.
Only 2 teams have more points on the year than Campbell County in 5A in football. On defense, Cougars are tied for 4th, the 4th fewest points allowed in the state in 5A. And the team that they're tied for 4th with, and 2 other teams in the top 4, so 3 of those top 5 teams in the state, they've only played 7 games and allowed that many points. The Cougars have only allowed 135 in 8 games. So those teams have another game to go, and the Cougars will move up in that ranking somewhat unless they have a shutout. Some of those teams have shutouts this week.
And,
when your offense is in the top 4 in the state and your defense is in the top 4 in the state for points allowed and points scored, you're doing well on this team.
And, I was looking at Jesse Smith every week on Twitter puts out what his ballot is. He's an AP voter, and he believes in transparency. He puts his ballot out. And I look at and almost every one of the top 10 teams in the state anywhere pretty close to us as far as geographically, because East Tennessee's just got bigger high schools.
That's going to affect the playoff standings quite a bit, and the playoff road for Campbell County, because around 8 of the top 10 teams in the state are all in the same East Tennessee region. You got Knox West is a powerhouse, Ooltewah's a powerhouse.
Sevier County,
Sevier County, I think, loses 6A for the playoffs now.
I could have swore they were on his 5A ballot. It might have been somebody else.
I don't think Sevier County's ranked in the top 10 for 5A. I think they
Maybe they are 6A.
It's East Hamilton is a powerful 5A.
Cleveland,
Bradley,
Ray County,
Ray County's in the top 10. It's just,
of course, AC.
Anderson County, Oak Ridge is still ranked 8th in the state. It's just, there's a lot of really, really good football being played in East Tennessee. And that's the Cougars playoff odds come out of that. It's really key for Campbell County to win for sure against Carnes. If you win against Carnes, you probably are going to get yourself a home game in the playoffs.
It's such a bizarre formula.
If you beat Carnes and beat Powell, which is what the Cougars' goal is, of course, you have yourself in a position to win the district for the first time ever, pending, Anderson County probably not going to lose to Hall unless a meteorite falls or something. But Anderson County has a tough game at Oak Ridge remaining.
And Oak Ridge, and look, hey, all hats off to the guys down south. They've had a heck of a season. But Oak Ridge at Oak Ridge is a special world.
And it's because of the way the district's so competitive right now. And it depends. Powell controls their fate, but Powell moves up to 6A. But Powell could be the district champion if they win out. That's all Powell has to do is beat Campbell County and beat, I believe, Oak Ridge this week. If they win those 2 games and win the rest of their games, I think they may play. They play one of the bad teams, Carnes or Gibbs or somebody, or Halls or somebody like that. If they can win out,
They had the Halls game this week.
if they win out, they're the district champions anyway. That's Powell. Powell controls their destiny. They have 3 district games remaining. And, of course, the big one against Campbell County. If Campbell County wins out, Anderson County has to lose. They have to lose to Oak Ridge or Halls, which would
So Oak Ridge.
be like a meteorite falling. Now, Oak Ridge, if Oak Ridge wins out, they control their fate the rest of the way to the extent that Campbell County would have to lose to Powell. Oak Ridge would have a win over Powell and a win over AC, but still have the loss to Campbell County. So it's convoluted. The only team that can win out and not have to worry is Powell. But once again, they move up. But where that affects Campbell County,
See,
the 5A teams in it, are you the first 5A team, the second 5A team, or the third 5A team in the district? And that's between Campbell County, Oak Ridge, and Anderson County right now. Now, if Campbell County beats Powell, that's fine, their seed is fine. If Campbell County loses to Powell, you want to hope that Anderson County beats Oak Ridge, because that way Oak Ridge will be a spot behind Campbell County. Campbell County cannot catch Anderson County if they lose to Powell, regardless of what happened to this team. That way, if Oak Ridge beat Anderson County in that place, AC would take that number 2 seeding in the 5A poll. Possibly, AC might remain number 1, because I think all teams will be tied and have a loss against each other. It starts going to points, records again.
right.
And
It's a it's 14 different tiebreakers.
it's a bunch of different tiebreakers, and it's affected too that Campbell County played an out-of-state team, and that out-of-state team's a small school. That affects your playoff ranking. And if it was a 3-way tie and true traditional tie where each team had a win against each other, and they were trying to determine the seed, Oak Ridge would have a leg up if all 3 teams ended up tied, because Oak Ridge's out-of-conference opponents were Farragut, which is a 6A school, and a good 6A school at that, and I want to say they may have played East Hamilton or somebody like that.
They played another big powerhouse school.
Anderson County played Catholic, which is a smaller school.
But a state-ranked power.
They're the powerhouse, but they're still a small
But they're
school.
smaller, and they don't take the state ranking.
It's your record, it does come into effect, but also the size of your school comes into effect as well. I mean, obviously, a 8-0 single A team is not near anywhere close to the level of a 5-3 3A team, as a general rule. But that comes into effect. After that, it comes down to, say, Austin East is also a smaller school. Anderson County played out of conference. Oak Ridge has a leg up on that. I think it comes down to points scored, which Anderson County has a leg up on that. Because they were actually number 2 in the state in points scored this year in 5A. It's a long process, and the best thing Campbell County can do is just win both their football games remaining and hope that Anderson County loses. But any way you shake it out, I think an 8-win Cougar team is very highly likely to host at least one playoff game.
And that will be another example of watching Dawson shake.
If they got a 2 seed, they would probably host 2 playoff games. If they get a 1 seed, they're going to host 1 game, very likely, but they would have a bye in the opening round of the playoffs.
Which is really preferable because, well, TSSAA is a bunch of money grubbers. You know, Campbell County actually does not benefit from the gate.
No.
And so if you can sneak in to a playoff game, do.
They're not going to be any. It's strange where they do their pods too. It's somewhat geographical based. So you may look, and this team gets to play. You may find 2 teams that are kind of bad playing each other in the opening round, and Campbell County may get stuck with a really good team in the opening round. I mean, they were 7-3 and had to go to Ooltewah and play.
Yeah.
And some teams with 6 and 5 wins, I believe, got the host playoff games.
Yeah, Campbell County has had to go to Ooltewah twice in their 3 playoff game history, and Ooltewah's a tough place to play. The Owls
They're good
are
every
a
year.
great program.
They're basically the Oak Ridge of the Chattanooga area.
And of course, our one other playoff game, of course, was Farragut up here, and that atmosphere, I mean,
that was another
it was
case
electric.
of tough seeding, because I want to say Farragut had what may have been 8-2 or 9-1 and had to travel up here.
They did. And that's even before the Z plan.
Yeah,
It's just weird how they do it.
it's TSSAA. It ends up being 18 pods, and I think there's 4 18 pods, or maybe 4 19 pods, but the 1 seeds get a bye. I believe is what it is actually.
Right. And of course, you know, Campbell County, if we have to travel, the one good thing about it is, if we have to travel, it's most likely not going to be a super long trip.
No,
Not starting out.
your first round game, like last year, Powell Central played again in the first round rematch from just the district season. It's according to how it shakes out. No, it wasn't Powell Central. It was Powell's the number 1 seed got a bye. It was 2 teams from the district played each other, and then Anderson County, who got in the playoffs with 5 wins last year. They had to go on the road down towards Chattanooga.
Right.
But I think 4 teams from the district made the playoffs last year.
Speaking of playoffs, of course, La Follette fell Thursday night to an improved Norris team, a team that they'd beaten earlier in the season.
Now, they had a shootout with them earlier in the season, 135-28. They couldn't quite get the offense going against Norris this week, and Norris, they were able to throw the ball around a little bit and ended up getting a pretty big victory.
And my hat's off to Coach Honeycutt and his staff this year. Josh, JT. I'm gonna leave people out. I'll just go with those 3 because I can't. I'm not putting names with faces right now.
Well, I mean, we went 0-8 to 5-5. I think they won 7 games this year, maybe.
They lost. They're 7-1 this year, not before the playoffs because they only lost. No, 6-2 because they lost to Jacksboro, lost to Alcoa.
Okay,
That's an 8-game season.
So they ended up 6-3. They improved this year, made the playoffs, of course, as the top 2 seed. Things are looking up for them. Every year in middle school you have to replace a bunch of players because people just aren't there to play that long. You get really 2 years of them, you have your JV and then 2 years in the league. He's got them heading in the right direction. We're not sure who Jacksboro plays Thursday night.
Their opponent won't be decided until tomorrow night.
That's strange because the schools are on spring break or fall break or whatever. It's fall break, obviously, because it's fall. But for some reason, the school, they decided to play the game on Tuesday night instead of playing it last Thursday.
And I'll be honest with you, if I was a coach, I'd have sucked it up and played it Thursday. Because to play a game Tuesday, and to come in against Jacksboro, who's a physical team.
You got to play 2 games in 3 days, basically. So that's tough for her.
And, you know, that Jacksboro front line on defense, I mean, they're tackling machines.
Oh, yeah. Jacksboro's a tough team. They're tough on offense. They run you, pretty much run you into the ground if they can.
They have about 3 good running backs they rely on. And of course, Bowman quarterback. So the Eagles have a good shot of.
I believe it will be between Eagleton and,
The game tomorrow is between Eagle and the Soldiers and War.
okay, Jacksboro beat both teams during the regular season pretty handily. If Jacksboro wins that, of course, they will face probably, I'm going to guess, Oneida. I think Oneida probably will beat Norris.
Most likely, of course. I'm actually pulling for Norris. My old player and good friend Daniel Collins coaches there.
You know, Oneida being the big rival and the champions every year, you should probably always pull against them, unless you're in front of Oneida, and then you still should. You probably won't.
But you know, I've got high hopes that Jacksboro, this is their year. This is the year for Jacksboro to win the title.
It's as good a shot as they've had. Oneida's still great and only lost in 1 game to Jacksboro this year, but Oneida's beatable this year compared to the last 5 years when they went undefeated and won the championship every year. So if you're not going to do it this year with a giant 31-man 6th grade class they have coming up, you're probably not going to do it for a few more years in that case.
And you know, there's some smaller news that's sports related, not necessarily related to the teams. Kudos to the school board. They voted to renovate Campbell County Stadium.
Yeah, that's needed. I mean, Campbell County Stadium is almost 40 years old, and other than just a paint job or two, as far as the stadium part that the fans actually use, it's not really had much of anything done to it.
New restroom facilities are most likely going to be built,
Thank goodness for that.
including potentially press box restroom.
You know, I'm all for that one for sure.
And I'm talking to Coach Shane Wolfenbarger of Cougars Soccer. They're getting their own field.
Yeah, complete concession stands, bleachers, everything on the football practice field.
So, you know, that's going to be good for that program, and which, of course, leaves the tennis team basically as the odd man out.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that tennis courts are so expensive to build. I mean, there's nearly $1 million to build them. That's just tough to come up with.
Right, I mean, it's crazy to think that it's easier and cheaper to put in a soccer field, complete with bleachers, restroom facility.
I can't imagine that's probably going to cost more than $25,000 or $30,000, to be honest with you. Maybe 40 or 50 at most.
But with tennis courts, of course, you've got to have the surface.
The tennis courts, they would have to do a lot of great. The field is already in place up there for the soccer field. All they have to do is literally buy the goals and a scoreboard. If they even buy a scoreboard, I'm not sure if they will or not. And just a couple of things. They'd probably be less than $50,000 for it all. Just all the surface for the tennis court, the grading, all that.
Fencing.
And for 7, because you need about 6 or 7 courts.
And you've got to have high fences for tennis courts.
Yeah. It's just really expensive, and hopefully some way they can come up with some funding for it, raise money for it, get some of the local wealth to contribute to it. It's just hard for people to get behind tennis, but those are the same student athletes as are in any other sports that deserve just the same amount of support.
Well, fans, I hope to see you all at the Jacksboro game this week. Of course, Campbell County is not playing anywhere this week on their open date. John and myself will be on the road. We will not be in town, so you know, I hope you all find a great football game to attend this weekend. I mean, it's East Tennessee. There's good football out there.
You know, go to a game Friday night. Go to that Oak Ridge Anderson County game. Cheer against Anderson County.
Actually, AC's open this week.
Is it? Oh, no, it's Oak Ridge and Powell game.
Oak Ridge and Powell. Now, that'll be a good game.
You go to the Oak Ridge and Powell game and cheer against Powell. That would help Campbell County maybe.
But fans, we will see you Thursday night. We'll be back here in Papa John's studios next week.